Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discourse 11.5. I think that's what it is. Yes, 11.5, another 1.5, because everyone wanted to talk about Matrix Resurrections, or I wanted to talk about it. I think someone said, I think it was Emily right before she left, she's going to come back. She didn't want just to listen to us shit on the movie, or maybe not all of us are going to shit on the movie. Maybe I'll say some positive things. Maybe there's something Vanny's going to, he's going to shit on it. Maybe some other people who are here are going to have enjoyed it, and they want to talk about the things that worked about it. It'll make for a fun discussion. But it's an absolute pleasure to have Austin here, Thunder Lee, Casfe, me, and Vanny. But I'll just get right into it. I had watched this last night. I mean, I'll give you the situation, the setting. It was late at night. It was already probably post 2 a.m. at this point, and it's a long movie. It went on for about 2.5 hours. So, 4:30, nearly 5 in the morning by the time it all wrapped up. But, so the circumstances probably weren't the best to watch. I will say that. However, I was giving this movie a chance long before I finally started watching it last night with you guys. Many of you were there with me for the watch party. I liked the trailers. I liked trailer number 1. I liked trailer number 2. I thought, oh, that's kind of fun that, the whole concept is Neo had indeed survived the events of the third film. He's he's computer Jesus, as we all know, and he comes back. He rose again 60 years later within a brand new Matrix, have new actors playing, new versions of old characters. I was like, okay, this is all cool. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Action looks fun. Got one of the Wachowskis return. It's cool. And all the actors seem really excited. Hey, we're bringing back the Matrix, and I'm going to give it, a fresh reboot, if you will, kind of like a soft reboot. It's it's cool. And I started watching the movie, and I didn't know what the fuck was happening. I was so confused, and I went, oh, no. Because what I felt that they did throughout most of this movie is they leaned into, yet again, the stuff that I personally feel a lot of people aren't interested when it comes to Matrix, or I can only speak to myself, really. Some people like the philosophical stuff. But for myself, what I like about that original Matrix movie is how it was just it was fresh take on a sci-fi world with really good action and some interesting characters and concepts. But as they went on and Reloaded, and I've seen these recently again, Reload and Revolutions, they leaned into the philosophical nature of the Matrix. And they spent a lot of time pontificating and going on these heavy exposition-esque monologues and just philosophizing in general, where it's we can actually have some character development here. And I feel like this movie just did that again, except now it's but now we're being kind of doing a little wink and a nod at the audience, see, but it's we're referencing the original film, but in a really super meta kind of way that people do nowadays on social media. I was I really didn't like that. And aside from just the overall confusing narrative, I thought a lot of the characters felt underwritten or just oddly, just odd performances across the boards from people I like this actor. I don't think he's a bad actor, but Yahya Abdul-Mateen, for whatever reason, he came off so stilted. I really miss, and he plays a new version of Morpheus, and I really miss someone like Lawrence. Even if I didn't like his character by the end of those films, he didn't have the same gravitas as someone like Lawrence Fishburne. That didn't work for me. Trinity, they bring back Carrie-Anne Moss. I feel like she was completely underused in this movie. And, Keanu Reeves is doing he's doing what he always does, which is you're charming and you're confused. I get that. But there was such a lack of character development for so many characters. And then also you had, I always forget the actor's name. The guy, he played King George III in Hamilton. He's that same actor. Jonathan Groff. Thank you, Vanny. Thank you. He plays the new Agent Smith. I like that actor a lot, but my God, again, he was underplaying it. He didn't have the same menace, didn't have that weird cadence that Hugo Weaving had when talking to Mr. Anderson. It's no, it just, and they constantly use footage to reference back to better moments when you had other actors playing those characters, in my opinion, much better than they're being played now. And by the end, I think it was horribly paced, very poorly paced. It was, for me, and the editing was brought up off mic by Casfe. The editing in the movie, I think this is some of the worst editing. It's atrocious. For everything from the action scene, it's I don't get it. It's okay, I thought the Wachowskis clearly know how to shoot action. We saw that, or maybe it's not the same sort of cinematographer, but we've seen that across the 3 films, especially the first one, and yet it gets progressively worse. That is nuts to me. So yeah, I would not think that The Matrix Resurrection would be, for me personally, my worst movie of 2021. But man, it's trying hard to get on top right now. But I was not a fan. However, I do want to give everyone a moment to talk about the film who has seen it. And let's start. Let's start with some positivity. How about that, Emily? Happy to have you here. You like the movie.
I gotta skip. My dog is out of control right now.
That's okay. That's no problem. If you ever need to get off mic and to handle your dogs, no problem at all. But if you do you want to speak on The Matrix? I mean, you liked it. You clearly liked it. Yes. I didn't, but I would love to hear. We all would.
Sorry, you didn't.
That's totally fine. Thank you. But what was your opinion on the film? What did you like about it?
Well, I mean, I like that they kind of, explain. Well, they didn't really explain some things, but they kind of made sense of why this character wasn't here anymore, because there was a passage of time and whatnot. I'd say I like this a lot more than Revolutions. Revolutions put me to sleep. I'm not gonna lie. I went to go see it back in the day when it came out in theaters, and I was too young at the time to really understand all what was going on. It was very, very boring to me.
Sure, I agree with that. Yeah, it's a boring movie.
But seeing this one years later, I don't look at it. I try not to look into the Matrix too much because it'll just go down a rabbit hole and you'll just
what they say in the movie.
Just get yourself lost in that shit. I just looked at it as it was a fun movie to watch, to sit around. I think it needed to be 2.5 hours long. All those fucking flashbacks. As much as I like the movie, goddamn, could they have beat us any more over the head with the fucking references? We get it.
Yeah,
we get it.
Yeah,
I think we've all seen The Matrix at this point, or know of it, or all the references at least. It's overall, I liked it. I'd have to give it. I give it a rental, honestly. Not sure
on the double toasted scale, again, rental.
But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it is.
All right, and that's totally fine. That's fair. Also, you hadn't seen the movie yet, correct?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I would like to say I might watch it next week. I mean, I'm kind of excited. I like all the Matrix. Well, okay, I don't like 3 is the one I think is probably the worst, but I have some. I like some of the ideas they put through, and because the first Matrix is just a big. It's a action mixed with if you ever heard of Plato's metaphor of the cave.
And I've not.
It's a whole idea is basically dudes hung up on a cave and then there's a light behind them and then all they see is shadows and it's that's what they think the world is. And basically once you
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So once you get 3, you realize. So that's kind of what the Matrix is based on. Thank you, my high school philosophy teacher. But anyway, and it's just that mixed with kind of a lot of high profile action and a lot of bullet time and a lot of other things that were popular at the time. And then they were kind of criticized I think by a big philosopher. And that's why they kind of made 2 sort of about free will and determinism. And, are we just kind of going to be repeating and sort of the same on with 3 and are we slaves to free will and blah, 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 blah. So I think there's interesting philosophies in those movies. I know it's 3 is as boring as garbage, and I realize it's also somewhat dated just because of effects, but I think all the action, just the kung fu action holds up in the movie. Sorry if you hear a bunch of dogs.
No problem.
I'm excited to see. I do appreciate Lana Wachowski as a director, and it's just I'm interested to see her by herself without Lily.
Yeah, I
guess
guess
this is the first movie they did without each other.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I suppose it. I guess that is. That's true.
Was this the first movie they did apart?
I think this is the first film they've done apart from each other.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe. Yeah. So no, I think that's right.
I've liked some of their. Speed Racer. I think is good. I've enjoyed. I didn't ever watch Jupiter Ascending, but I
that's a film. That's a film and a half.
Yeah, Jupiter Ascending is a.
I like V for Vendetta, which I know they produced, and I heard Sense8 was pretty good with that show they did for Netflix.
I have heard that from a lot of people who are not even a big fan of the Wachowskis' filmography. That they like Sense8. I hear a lot that they say like that's the best thing they've done probably since like the original Matrix. I was like, okay, that's good to hear. I've never watched it myself.
I've also heard for this movie, and this is based on Corey's review, that Jada Pinkett Smith is in it, and they do her real dirty, and she looks like she's caught in a I'm putting this in air quotes, entanglement. Referred to.
Jada Pinkett Smith already looks good, so they had to make her look really, really ugly and really, really fucking old. And
she looks like she's got brown Play-Doh smeared on her face. It's like it's a combination of makeup and CGI, and it's like this is not a good combination.
My husband went, "What the fuck?" when he saw her face.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god, when you just see her walking around, just like doing that little old lady waddle. I thought, oh, that's adorable. I don't know. They should have asked. I don't know the Wachowskis were, but they should have asked for Marvel's de-aging face tech, or something that they've been using across their films over the last few years.
Whatever they used in Spider-Man, the newest one.
Yeah, I mean, look at William Dafoe or Alfred Molina. It's they should have used that.
Does it look worse than what's his name in Rogue One?
Yes, it looks so much worse, and I don't even like Star Wars. It looks worse.
It's bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. At least it stood out to me. It's just she just didn't look real. She looked like it was okay. You look like a CGI character. And that was a little too much. It just didn't work for me. I think it was, yeah. I think it was a combination of CGI and makeup. That's what it was. But you're interested in still seeing it though, Austin? Correct?
Yeah, I'm interested.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm very curious. I'm very curious to hear your opinion once you've seen the movie, and you even like the trilogy. Well, you like the first two, films at the very least. So that'd be interesting to hear. Thunder Lee, about yourself? You seem to have like a mixed opinion on the movie. Your overall thoughts on the film? What you like? What you didn't like?
So I liked the film, to be honest. Like I saw this at 2 a.m. like the night it came out, and I'm not I'm not a big fan of the Matrix. Like I've seen all the films and I know which ones I like and which ones I don't like. But like I'm not into like the whole deep lore of like the Matrix. All I really understand of it is, hey, there's machines, there's a computer, and that's it. So going into this, I'm like, all right, I just wanted to see the action. That's what I really wanted. And I honestly do like the first half of this film where there's that, oh, you don't know what's going on, but is it happening? Like type of thing. So I like all that. But then when that second half came through, that's when I was like I didn't like Morpheus. That version of Morpheus. It just felt unnecessary to me. The guy from Hamilton, I love that actor so much.
Jonathan Groff, as Vanny said. Jonathan Groff.
But I just did not like his performance in this.
Yeah.
At all. I do like Neil Patrick Harris in this movie, even though by the end of it was kind of unnecessary the way he was acting. And
yeah,
I do agree about the editing. Like it felt weird, especially at like the very end where they had to like cut to like a different scene. Is like, wait, you just gonna end it like that? Like that's just underplaying the whole entire sequence of what was going on right now. But okay. But other than that second half, that first half got me like invested in it, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you in regards to the performances of several of the actors. Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Jonathan Groff as their respective characters playing, iconic roles, no doubt, in the last 20 plus years. I mean, when people look at Lawrence Fishburne, they see Morpheus. When they look at Hugo Weaving, they see Agent Smith. And when you're stepping into those characters, even if those characters weren't necessarily used very well, and maybe sequels, people still know who they are and they like them. They say their lines, they're iconic. And yeah, you got to fucking bring it. And, I don't really so much blame them. I just blame how they were directed and the dialogue they were given. They just didn't feel... There was just so little character to them, so little emotion. There was just not any development at all, and they all felt like they were underplaying them. It almost felt like they were scared to, like Hugo Weaving. I would have liked if Jonathan Groff honestly was going. I would have loved it if he did the evil meme laugh that we see Agent Smith do in the third film. He was very
subdued.
He was super subdued. That's the perfect word for Emily. Both of them were super subdued, and I know because it's like, well, it's a new Matrix. They're not exactly the same, so the personality is going to be a little different. And it's like
they made them too different, though.
I agree. I agree, and I
don't mind them being different. It's just that the way they were written sounded like they were supposed to be sarcastic in a way, and they weren't acting like that.
Smith came off as being way more sarcastic to me, like even the original, like Hugo Weaving. You know how his performance was like.
Well, it's hammy. It's a hammy performance, but it works.
He was being hammy and whatnot with it, and just like the what's his name, the guy in the new movie. He wasn't doing enough for me.
Yeah. I just again, he was. Both of them were very subdued, and they just kind of came off boring. Honestly, the performances were boring to me. But no, but thank you for sharing, Thunderly. Casfang, what about you? Your general thoughts on the movie?
Well, for me, I guess this movie's just a lot to unpack. I mean, I will say that I really loved the original Matrix for all its weirdness, even if there were moments when I wasn't sure what was happening. But with this movie, it's one of those things, in order to get a full sense of it, I'll definitely have to watch it again, maybe partially because of how choppily edited it was. Like, I feel like parts of it were mishandled. I guess, like I was saying before we started recording, it felt like the editor wasn't on the same page as Lana Wachowski, and I'm not sure who else helped write this movie. I think there were at least 2 other people, but it just, I don't know. Like, I understand that the Wachowskis have a vision with these movies, and I deeply, deeply appreciate it because it's important to the LGBT community. These movies are a trans allegory, and there are things that are very widely relatable. Like, I'm non-binary myself, and I do understand, especially like at the beginning of this movie where Bugs and Morpheus are talking, and they talk about how they have that moment where they feel like that world around them isn't real, and they're like, oh, I'm not the person that I've been living my life as this whole time. And it's a very beautiful thing, and it makes me wish even more that it were captured a bit more perfectly, because it's like, I don't know if the editor cared that much about the vision that is supposed to be portrayed in these movies. I don't know who it is that's messing it up. It could be that the Wachowskis have other people involved with these films that keep interfering, and it's hard for them to work together. Or maybe it's the fact that they have an idea and they need help with it, but can't find the right people to help. So I can't. And it's just this series, whenever I watch anything related to it, I'm trying to decide how I feel about it. There's that pressure there from the LGBT community, because it's like, this is required viewing for us. Some of us see it that way. I mean, it's difficult. So it's like, this movie is confusing. I'm going to say that.
Yes.
It almost wasn't finished.
What?
The movie. I'm sorry, I was doing some research here, and Lana Wachowski, I think the pandemic actually probably played a part with all that happened last year, because they had started filming it right as it had begun and whatnot. And I know that Lana Wachowski had temporarily shelved the project, but the cast had to convince her to finish it last year before they had released the trailers and whatnot. So maybe that played a part in why the editing wasn't so. What word would you put it as?
A mess.
Yeah. A little incoherent, I'd say. Like,
Sure.
The other thing is Trinity being underwritten, like it was said before. Like, there are so many really great moments with her, especially at the end. And I won't spoil anything too much, but just the whole process of her figuring out who she is, and, they're trying to help get her out and all that. It's very relatable for people in the community. And I just think she, to me, towards the end, was reading as a non-binary character. And I just think more of the movie could have been focused on her. If they really wanted to reimagine this series, why does it have to be all about Neo all the time?
Right. Right. No, that's true. I felt like they were definitely like, oh, see what they're going to be doing in the future. I was like, and you know what? I was like, that's cool. I like that. I wish that would have been the movie. I wish that was more the focus in the first half. And then we have that moment that happens with her, at the end, but that's like the middle point. It's like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. I want to see how they're going to play at that. But by the time we see that, it's the end of the movie. And it's like, shit, that's a lost opportunity. But no, thank you for bringing it up and bringing some of that, just the socio-political angle coming into there, especially in regards to the LGBTQ community. I think that's great. That's very interesting. It's and you're right, because then you brought this up too, Emily, about the film being shelved at the time. Yeah, I think Lana Wachowski, she had said like she wasn't even going to return to it, but yeah, it had to be the cast to convince her. So like this movie already was, seemed to be on it didn't have a very solid foundation from the start. There seemed to be just so many things going against it. But moving on from Casvin, again, thank you for sharing. Newsy Ducky, welcome. We're talking about the Matrix Resurrections right now. I don't know if you've seen the movie. We're not doing anything specifically spoilery right now, but do you have any thoughts on the film, or have you seen the movie?
I didn't care about it.
Okay. And there it is.
Let's try to
So say hello, everyone, and Merry
Hi,
Christmas.
Newsy Ducky.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
Newsy
Christmas.
Ducky.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, I didn't see it, and from seeing Chris's face while watching it, thank God I did not see it. And I'm thankful that he has to suffer 2.5 hours for that.
Payback for the
Yes.
Yeah, payback for no Jackbox last night.
Oh,
I heard
man.
Jackbox.
Payback for that Among Us fiasco.
Oh, when I stabbed
Oh
you.
man.
I did that real good.
when you
I did
threw
that
her
really
under the
good.
bus. Yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah.
that was fun.
Yeah, so I'm thankful for that movie, to be honest.
Cool. Well, there you go. All worked out.
Yeah.
Vanny, how about yourself, sir? How about yourself? What are your opinions, your general thoughts on this film?
General thoughts is it's my worst film of the year. And as much as I went into this film, just not even with the negative attitude, because the first trailer made me fairly indifferent to like, this, I don't really care. The second trailer got me a little bit more excited. I thought it was cut a little bit better. So I was like, all right, I'll be looking forward to this. And kind of going in with that level. And by minute 18, I was absolutely just done with the film. I didn't like the characters, especially a lot of the ancillary characters. And especially when they're trying to introduce like the new world that Neo is living in and like his coworkers, I hated them with an insane passion. And like I think to give the film some credit, I do think they do have a couple of interesting ideas in terms of how to have the film franchise go forward. But the execution is so lacking in nearly every regard. Like I remember even commenting during the watch party of one of the greatest things about the original Matrix film was it was at its core an action sci-fi film with really innovative like fight scenes. Like the entry fight scene towards the end of the film was amazing. The introduction of bullet time, the use of guns and kung fu, really solid. And now we have a lot of slow motion moves. Not quite bullet time slow motion, although there's quite a bit of bullet time. But you're just seeing everyone they can't go at the pace they were 20 years ago. And you're not really supposed to, but that also means you get a new cast. I didn't like the meta references and how, especially in the first half of the film, how insanely meta to the point I'm surprised the characters didn't just start looking at the camera going, get it? Like, you get what we're trying to say here? Like, it's super obvious. Like the name of the company that Neo now works for, the name of his game. Like even when they're doing the brainstorming about like how they want to make it a sequel and it's references to Warner Brothers directly.
Right.
At some point, like it's reminds me a lot of like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where it has those meta moments where they literally look at the camera. Like I would prefer that level of just like I thought they were just to the point they were just kind of talking down to you. And maybe it's because I had just seen something about this. Recently, there's a YouTube video that kind of dissected this is like the early 2000s film adaptation of Rent. And there's a scene in there that in the play, the character is on one of the characters in Rent is on stage doing like this one woman show, and she's trying to stick it to the man, and she's trying to like really make her point across about, you know, how it's all about corporate greed, and it's played as if she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about, and it's kind of meant to be played as a joke. But in the film adaptation, it's played like legit, like she is really sticking to the man, and the audience gets into it, and you're like, you're right, down with corporate America. There's so many scenes of that level of just that disconnect of like you're trying to really stick it, but you're doing it in a very obvious and very dumb way, but you're playing it so sincerely and so poorly that it's just awkward. Particularly, like I said, in the first half, where it just drove me absolutely insane. I didn't think the action scenes were that great. There wasn't a like that bank lobby entry scene equivalency of it. And Neo's powers now. Neo's basically a shitty Jedi, or he's 11 now. Like, there's a scene towards the end of the film where, like, I remember commenting, going like, "Yeah, 11 did that first in season 1 of Stranger Things, and she did it better. Like, his powers are now way crappier. It's just, ugh. I can legitimately do like an hour discussion on everything I hate about the film. Like, it's so unnecessary and so dumb, and it talks down to us a lot, I think, too, which is, to me, I think was probably one of the most infuriating. And is for a film that really did franchise that, at least in the initial one, really embraced geek culture and was really trying to connect with like a hacker or like the outcast sort of audience. Now it's just talking down to us like we're just geeks and stupid, or that we don't know how to interact with women, or we don't know how to like have social conversations too. It's just insulting. And that's, for me, as a, like, if there, it would get a very insane fuck you on the DT scale. Like, I walked out of there like Last Jedi levels. I'm sorry,
and the referencing and the meta-ness of the movie is annoying, becomes grating. Honestly, I wish they just started looking at the camera. It's like, if you're going that far with everything, just look at us and talk to us. Make us a character. Are you a character in the Matrix? You can be. It's like, why not? Right. And you're right. I forgot to bring up those other game developers that Neo works with. Oh my lord, just the writing for them and the dialogue that they were given. There's a lot of, I think, going to be like meme worthy or GIF or just like, you know, video worthy mocking of this movie, of particular scenes, especially for like, oh my god, where's the one scene where it's like, because Neo, he looks over and like his one of his gaming friends, who's not even his friend, he's a piece of shit, he goes, "Oh, look at that girl, what a milf!" It's like, oh my god,
that's the 8-minute mark.
Now I think
hated
about
that
it,
character.
do you feel that was Lana Wachowski's way addressing, like, because we have all these things coming out now in the video game industry of all these, you know, developers or publishers, like Ubisoft or Activision Blizzard most recently, and how there are all these cases of sexual harassment, sexual assault in the workplace. Do you feel like that might have been her way of addressing it? I just feel like it's so heavy-handed and not even like well done.
I think if it was done purely by accident. Like, honestly, I think it was just like, because if it was just his singular character, okay, then I think that might be more of a commentary. But like, everybody who works with him at Deus Machina, which, fuck that name,
I know,
is so over the top dumb, and I think it's just part of it is just like, it's part of the, like, more, I think, like the meta narrative than anything else. I think it it very well could be, and maybe it is kind of a stab at the industry for being so misogynistic, but I would lean more towards that's purely an accident. And just like her not really understanding her own franchise anymore.
Right.
Was it around this time when they were filming the Ubisoft thing just came out?
I think they started filming this in the like the first half of 2020. Like, it was in the very beginning of 2020, right? Is that when they started filming this? Because right at the start of the pandemic. So I forget when the Ubisoft stuff had started to come out. But maybe
late night. Film didn't start February 2020.
There you go.
So right before the pandemic started. So
it could be a little of both, or maybe since there's multiple people who were working on it, like writing wise and everything, it could have gotten lost in translation. Like, maybe Lana Wachowski wanted it to be that way, but it could be someone else looked at it and they didn't read it with the same irony.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They just completely misunderstood it. Yeah. Because I feel like that could have been interesting if they wanted to actually have a moment. Like, if we're getting meta with it. Let's get meta with the video game industry and what happened, or what sometimes happens, with these higher ups, these people that have been grandfathered in and perform this type of behavior for years.
Right. I think if one of the the end credit scene or the post credit scene, if that didn't exist, I think it would give a stronger claim to that. But because of how unbelievably stupid that end credit scene is, I think it got that's where it makes me think back to no, they're trying to think what is the most meta commentary that you can make for it, just regardless, and that's also so surface level. And that to me, the end credit scene, all the discussions, it's all super surface level, where I can at least give Reload and Resurrection some credit that if the Wachowskis were reading philosophy books, they at least got halfway through the book before they started making these films. Resurrection to me is they read front covers and maybe instant flap. Because it's just, it almost, there's a scene in the film that reminds me of that Neil Breen piece of shit movie, Twisted Pair, where it's just characters are just saying random bullshit words, non sequiturs that doesn't quite lead into a discussion. It's just if you and I have a conversation, I just went meta, discussion, politics, religion, guns. That's not a conversation. That's just you saying some shit, trying to pretend to be smart. That level of just dialogue happens in a Matrix film, and that is so insulting. And I think that's why I get so mad about this film, was that it didn't have to be this bad. There's there's no excuse. Will 30 seconds. If you want to reboot the film, fine. If you want to bring back Keanu Reeves, the dude's in his 50s now too. He doesn't have the same range of motion too. He's not doing kung fu. He's not as fast. And it shows. He's still good in the John Wick films too, and he still has that physicality for it, but he doesn't have the same speed as he did in the first Matrix film, or even the first three. And it doesn't work in a kung fu film anymore. He has to have a balance, and they're just banking too much on his force powers.
Yeah, his power set I thought was pretty boring. I got sick of it fairly quickly. It was just very interesting visually, and you're right. I feel like he can still do that because I feel we've seen the John Wick movies, and he's doing some great stuff. And how it's shot, I think really what it comes down to is how it's being shot, how it's being edited, because not a single action scene for me stands out. Right. At all. I can't think of, they all kind of blend together. There's an interesting idea with, cyber zombies, and I'm okay, but even then, how that all plays out, there's nothing. It was an interesting idea. I don't think it was visually done very well. I didn't find it captivating, going ooh, what's going to happen next? It was just lackluster, a lot of elements in this movie. I was just thinking, okay, go on. Sorry.
Well, I think where he does well in John Wick though is they take longer cuts of it too. Yeah. And so that way you can see him doing everything that he's wanting to do. And I think because they also do a good mix of guns and hand-to-hand stuff. He's fast when he's using his guns. He's a little slower in hand-to-hand stuff, which it works because considering his age, and B, his history. So it works in that aspect. In the Matrix films, speed was the biggest thing, and he doesn't have that. That's the biggest flaw, is that he doesn't have that speed anymore. So they have to do quick cuts to kind of make up for it, and it just looks super weird. And I also think it might have also been just very poor fight choreography too, because I think before they had the guys from Crouch Tiger, Hidden Dragon were working on the choreography in the first Matrix films. They sure as fuck ain't back for this one. And I think that's also hurting it too.
That's a great question. I would very much like to know who choreographed this movie. I just wanted to bring a couple things up. People had asked before who was written by Lana Wachowski was one of the writers, but then you also have two other people too. David Mitchell, who I'm unfamiliar with as a writer, I guess. Well, he has worked with the Wachowskis before. He did Cloud Atlas with them, and I think that's it. And he's done some other things, but I've never heard of these. But he's also a novelist too, so you have that. And then the other one is Alexander Heman, and seeing what I'm not seeing any what he's written right now. I go this obviously. I'm unfamiliar with the rest of his filmography or body of work. And I think the editor is someone on Wiki. I'm looking at the editor. It's just Joseph Jet Sally. And
that's a cool name.
It is a cool name. That's like a comic book character name. It's did Stan Lee name that person? I imagine so. And they have there's no information on them. So maybe they're new. Maybe they're a new editor. Ooh. I don't know. Maybe it's this is their first film. I'd be curious about that.
If he's a new editor, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because you need someone who has experience in editing and knows how to edit movies, and that editing was
Sure.
just not
I'd be
good.
curious what this person has also worked on, but
Oh,
I don't think they've done a very good job. You have something to say, Benny?
So it looks like John Wick director Chad Stahelski is the fight choreographer. So like he's not the he didn't do the fight choreography for John Wick, but he did direct it. But that's what that guy's job was.
Interesting.
Like that's weird.
Yeah, I just think how this was shot. And the cinematographer, two people, Daniel Masakesi, who I'm unfamiliar with, and John Toll, who I'm also unfamiliar with, though he won some Academy Awards apparently in the 90s. So it didn't work here.
No,
But I had a thought before we continue on, and if anyone else has anything they want to bring up about the movie, one, I just want to say I feel like there's just a lot of lost opportunities here, even when it could have, because I was unfamiliar with the Matrix franchise, in particular this movie being a trans allegory. So that's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Kazfe. And you guys have brought up some additional points. If anything, it's like that's a shame that this movie cannot be a better product if it, since it's representing these things or these ideas. And that it's a real disappointment, I think. But I thought, I'm like, well, if I made this movie, but I don't know, let me partake in some of that. I like to like if I did it, I like doing that sometimes. And I think it may have been better just to do a fresh reboot, but like it's a soft reboot in a way, because one of the big things, this is a spoiler for the original movie, I'm not even gonna spoil anything in this movie, but in Reloaded, we learn through Neo's conversation with Colonel Sanders, the architect, that Neo is not the first version of the one. He's the sixth version. Okay, there's been 5 other people who have also tried to do what he's doing now. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because you could have had it where this could have been like the Neo trilogy. His story's done. He dies, but then he's come back. He's reborn again. It's like reincarnation. And because I felt like there was a rumor. I think maybe I talked about this during the review, but wasn't there a rumor that Michael B. Jordan was in talks to join this cast? Or as to be Neo. I don't know if it was for Morpheus, but I thought possibly like he was going to be the new Neo. And for me, that would have been really cool. It was like, okay, so you're starting fresh, but you're being very respectful of your lore originally. I mean, as much as I don't like Reloaded or Resolutions or Revolution, what the fuck it's called, 3. That was an interesting idea. And I think if you went that direction, so okay, let's kind of shed some of the unnecessary fat that had grown and attached itself to those 2 movies, and let's go something a little more simpler, a little more leaner, like the original film. I personally felt like that would have been better, because I think a lot of people tend to gravitate towards that first movie, because yes, it does introduce these philosophical concepts and things, but it doesn't feel like it's talking down to us, and it doesn't feel necessarily overly complicated or exposition heavy or dialogue heavy. It's still just at its core, I think the original Matrix works because it's a really interesting world, and you have some great characters and some amazing looking action, some revolutionary action for the time. That's why that first movie is iconic, and why it has its place in history, is being this huge film that inspired all sorts of other films throughout the next 2 decades, and many knockoffs. But yeah, for me personally, and if anyone else has anything to say, I just feel like this movie is just such a lost opportunity to capitalize on so many interesting things. And there's no excuse for that. And it's definitely for me. It's definitely one of my worst movies of the year. But does anyone else have anything to say before we wrap up and move over to our Christmas holiday themed discussion?
I just think sorry, I've been talking this whole time. Sorry, I can stop.
We'll do Thunder Lee, then we'll do Kaz Fan, then we'll do Vanny, and then if anyone else afterwards, please speak.
So I'm just gonna reiterate how my friend told me how he felt about the movie. He said that he liked the movie, but it was unnecessary, which I agree. The movie was unnecessary. It really didn't need to happen, to be honest, especially for the reasonings behind in story why this is happening. But I felt like there was too many plots that was going on in this, in my opinion. So as much as Vanny, I know you don't like that first half, and I do. I would have liked if this movie was just that first half of the movie where Neo really is trying to understand what's going on, and then the second movie would have been the middle of the movie, and then the third movie would have been something else completely. like make it a whole new trilogy. But that's just me. I I I I really can't talk more. I can't really talk positive about more stuff about this movie without going into spoiler territory. So
I will say they clearly do want to make a trilogy. I mean, the movie leaves off. It's like, all right, here we got more stuff. But
Even though
this movie's bombing. This movie's
but
only
that-
made $22.8 million.
that-
Now it could do well on HBO Max. I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna work. But
that ending to me felt like they had nothing else after that. So I don't want them to make another movie.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, it may not happen, but we'll know in the next few weeks what happens with this particular franchise. But Casfe, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, it was something I brought up last night during the watch party too, was that as confusing as there are also parts of it that are surprisingly paint by the numbers, just because I'm already drawn to stuff that has a surreal type of feel to it. Some of it was probably inspired by the original Matrix because it's been around for so long. And I mean, I've seen shows like Maniac, Once Upon a Time, although that's not Matrixy in the tech sense, but you know, it has things with people being under curses that make them think there's somebody else. And it's just, you know, there's that. Black Mirror has done so many episodes that touch on things like this.
True.
And also Infinity Train, if you want to talk about
Hell
like people
yeah.
coping with their internal shit, and there's all this symbolism and a world that kind of is constantly changing. You know, this movie, it seems like it's trying to do things like that. And I'm not saying that it deliberately copied anyone, but it feels like the people writing it, they didn't flex their brain muscles that hard to come up with this. It's like, you know, there's some symbolism in there, but when you really break it down, like Vanny was in the chat last night, like it just felt like, oh, that's it. That's all there is. You did a lot of talking just to tell us that.
Yeah. No.
And then
Very good point.
at the end of the day, say nothing. Too. Yeah.
Everything and nothing.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
But no, thank you, Casfe. Vanny, do you have do you have something you want to say to it at the end?
I think that to your point earlier about like how they could have fixed this film, like if they did want to do Michael B. Jordan as Neo, as the new incarnation of Neo, I think that could have worked. If they absolutely want to bring back Keanu Reeves, like the third film does kind of open up very well of like the body dies, like, but the mind or the consciousness could become integrated into the Matrix. He becomes the new architect who can take on anomalies. The Smith virus survives somehow. Like if Neo survives, that means the equal chance the Smith anomaly would survive. And now like Neo now has to work with Michael B. Jordan to take down like, hey, this thing spread, or make it even simpler. Like the Smith virus infected the architect. Something simple like that. It does not need to be like this weird over the top meta thing for it too, or even just have it where the robots have evolved where they no longer need a source of energy from humans. Now they figured out how to do, you know, like how to like bring back solar energy. Hey, we don't need humans anymore, and they were just going to shut it all down. Like that raises stakes for the folks who chose to still stay in the Matrix. Now there's stakes for them to not die, that they're going to die, and that could be the thing with the humans trying to convince the robots, like, hey, come on, let's just do a thing here. If you're just going to turn it all off, you're going to fuck a lot of people over or something. Like there's like 50 different ideas that could work very easily. Just even taking as confused as the lore has gotten, like you can still simplify it down and turn it into something worthwhile and turn it back into like a good action franchise. But this, for as much as they want to get meta, I think to Cassie's point, they also played it very safe too. Like you can predict, like when some dialogue, like there's a line where somebody's like, well, you look like shit, or, oh, we're all screwed. You can see like the dialogue, like a DDR, like you see the arrows coming down. You can just see them coming like a mile away. And it's just like, I still stand by a comment I made yesterday where if it's like, if Lana Wachowski did not want to make this film, but the studio's going like, you have a contract, we are going to make this film, you are going to do it, or we're going to sue you for, you know, whatever. And she just said like, fine, I'm doing it my way, and just made the biggest middle finger to Warner Brothers ever by making it so dumb. And if she did that, I was like, then she's brilliant. Like this is just like the best middle finger in cinema history of like, I didn't want to do this. I have a contract. I'm trolling you. I don't give a shit. I made the film. What are you going to do now? And they had no choice, but like, we already sunk, you know, $250 million into this. We don't have a choice but to release it. And like, she wins. if there's anything of that is true, then this is a perfect film to me. Like, it's just a good example of just corporate greed and just the bastardization of art in cinema or something like that. But
And that's why it's so meta.
yeah, maybe that's why it's doing that. It's like, fine, this is what you want. You like meta? Here's all the meta. We're gonna make it so meta it's dumb. You like kung fu? We're gonna give you the worst kung fu. You like Matrix powers? We're gonna give you the dumbest one. Fine. Like, if that's Lana's actual vision, I will buy her all the steak dinners that she wants.
That's pretty amazing if that is the case. That could be it.
It's not. But if she put real effort into, like, she wanted to make she had a story to tell, then it failed miserably.
Yeah, I agree. It's there is no reason for this film to be as bad as it is. For me, you had 20 years to think of something really interesting, really clever, and ways to address complaints. And I feel like they just didn't do that. If anything, you just buried your head in the sand even deeper, and you kept going until you found this movie. I found something. So.
Yeah, and the lore they throw so much lore at you that, again, if you blink, you have to go blow your nose, you're gone for 12 seconds. You've missed huge story chunks to explain the next 20 scenes.
The stuff with I don't know why the robots are fighting the humans again. Like, that got settled in the last movie, and yet they're fighting. I'm like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Why? Because of course they are. Everyone thinks that they always do. And it's like, I saw the movies recently. I know it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. I'm very interested to see if this franchise is going to continue on. It did not do very well this weekend. Spider-Man, like it's been doing all the other films that have been coming out, that made the mistake of coming out. It was crushed. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in the future. But that was our little non-spoiler discussion for The Matrix Resurrections. I imagine we can go into more details in the future. I think it'll be fun later on. We talked about this beforehand, about doing like our best of, worst of the year. Maybe by the time we do that, which, next couple of weeks, we could get into more spoilery details about some of these films, why we really didn't like them, and we can reference stuff like that would ruin the movie. That would spoil the movie for someone. Yeah. So I think that'd be fun. We could do it that way, get in more intimate detail.